Our last project was an integer calculator, and that's really nice, except most calculators can handle more than just integers. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to make a decimal calculator for level 6. And the first thing we're going to do to make that is we're going to change our int to a double. Now, an int is short for integer, but double is our keyword, our type in C++ that talks about decimals, okay? There's a couple different ones that we might use, but doubles are going to be our default for this project. So we have our double first number that says that first number can be an integer, but it can also be a decimal. So if I wanted to type in something like 1.5, it would be okay. All right, and the first thing you're going to notice after I do that is that I have these two under red lines. It's freaking out at me because we have a percent symbol, which you remember gives us the modulo or the remainder when we divide. But when you're dividing integers, you have a remainder. For example, 7 divided by 3 is 2 with a remainder of 1 because 3 doesn't go into 7 an even number of times. But when we're doing decimals, we don't have remainders. So this whole line doesn't apply to decimals. So that's why it won't even let us do it. All right, now when we look at the rest of our code, there's not a lot to change. We're going to go ahead and run it, and I'm going to go ahead and build it and see if there's any build errors. And I want you to think about how we can improve this calculator more than just using double instead of int. So we went ahead and built it, and now let's run it, and we're going to try specifically to use decimals instead of integers. Let's see it. All right, give me a number. I'm going to go with the first number being 3.5. No, 3.4. Second number, 2, and just leave it at 2, okay? So it says the sum of those two numbers is 5.4, so it has that decimal with it. The difference, subtract them, we got 1.4. The product is 6.8, and then the quotient is 1.7. So it went ahead and divided them. And it divides nice and evenly, came out to 1.7. Okay, so that worked well. But I'm going to run it one more time. And this time I'm going to be meaner. I'm going to give a number like 1. And the second number, let's give it 9. Okay, so 9, they add up to 10. They subtract to give me a -8. They multiply to give me just 9. But the quotient, when we divide them, it just gives me 0.11111, and it should go on forever, but it doesn't. It runs out of space, so it stops after, what is that, 6 ones. Now, that bothers me a little bit as a mathematician. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round it to the nearest decimal place. So we're going to round it, but in order to do our rounding, our set precision, the first way we're going to round, we're going to do in this level is go to include IO manip. Okay, so we're manipulating the IO stream, we're manipulating it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down, right below I declare my interviews, I'm going to open my output stream, and I'm going to call set precision. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set precision to the number of decimal places. So if I want to round it to 2 decimal places, I can say set precision to 2. Now when I type it in, I'm going to type in 1 and 3. Okay, so that's going to be, if I type in 1 and 3, what's it going to be? Well, it's going to add up to 4, it's going to subtract -2, but when we actually go ahead and do the division, it should give me 1/3 or 0.33333 repeating. So let's see, 1, 3. But it actually stopped at 2 decimal places. So that's perfect. That's what I wanted. I should probably add something in here to the 2 decimal places. I'm going to try something like, let's try 2/3, and I want to see if it rounds it up or rounds it down. So I'm going to run it one more time. And I'm going to type 2, 3, and it rounded up. It did a great job. It rounded it for me. Okay. And everything else, you're going to notice it didn't need decimals here because 2 plus 3 is a whole number. So it kept it a whole number. Now, let's say you wanted it to always be a decimal. In other words, you want 2 decimal places, no matter what, even if it's a whole number. There is a way to do that. We can have the set precision to, and then we fix it. So set precision fixed. Now we see, give me a number. I'm going to do the 2 and the 3, and we see that all of them have decimals, even when it wasn't needed. So the difference between having fixed, set, and not set is that when you set fixed, it always is going to have exactly however many decimal places you asked for. And so I asked for 2 decimal places. So even when it didn't need it, it gave me 2 decimal places. So those are some of the cool things we can do. It's super useful to set precision because a lot of times we want it to fit certain things. One thing we could do to improve this a little bit is we could go ahead and say that we're going to round it to so many decimal places, quotient of the 2 numbers. We could do a couple things in our output. We could say, instead of just saying the sum of the 2 numbers, we could say the sum of the first one and the second one. So we could say the sum of first number or we could even go all the way back and say first number plus second number. And then we could go ahead and output that it equals the answer. All right, so all I'm doing is making it look a little bit nicer by spacing stuff out. All right, so now when I run it, I'm going to build it. And it builds pretty quickly because this isn't a very big project. And I'm going to see what it looks like. Give me a number. Let's give it something like 4 and 7. And look at that. Now it says 4 plus 7 equals 11. And again, I still haven't fixed it 2 decimal places. I kind of like this as a feature instead of the words. I think it's a little bit easier to understand, especially since before when we had difference, we said difference is subtract, but it's always going to subtract the second number. So it might be a little bit more clear if we output it this way.